He has already appointed the majority of the government and the majority of the ministers. I mean, and we already see that his government has a completely new way of communicating with the public. In the past, the government ministers and the prime minister, president, they were very difficult to reach. They hardly gave press conferences and usually communicated through their press secretaries and gave very limited statements. Now, both the prime minister and most of his ministers, they are communicating directly with the public. They are going live on Facebook once or twice every day, talking about recent developments, reacting to the criticism that has been voiced on social networks. As for specific steps, obviously they didn't have much time yet, and they couldn't suggest any specific reforms, but they have sent the messages, especially in the institutions such as the police, the customs office, the army, that corruption can no longer be tolerated, that all those complications that people have had when, for example, importing certain goods into Armenia, that this has to be stopped. And there have been reports in the media that businessmen who are importing certain goods in Armenia, in the last week, the process has been much easier.
Can you tell us a little bit about the political mood? Is there a lot of optimism right now in Armenia? What is the mood like on the ground?
I would say a week ago, people were still in the euphoria. It was the euphoria of the movement. The revolution had just won, or it was obvious that this was not going to last very long, because now there's much more criticism. There is criticism about specific ministers who have been appointed. There is a lot of questions about specific policies. What is the government's policy is going to be in this issue or that issue. So now people are in a much more, I would say, demanding mood. So they are done celebrating, and now they wait specific results. And this is a very complicated period for the new government, because we have to understand that they are not completely in power. They control the prime minister's office and the ministries, but in the parliament, the old ruling party still has the majority.
Has Parliament been dissolved yet, or is that still in the process of happening? What's happening with that aspect of things?
Yes, that's a very serious question, and the constitution of Armenia, which has been recently changed in order to fit the ruling Republican Party, it doesn't give many options. So at this moment, basically, what probably will happen, and I think what Nikol Pashinyan wants to happen, is that he will suggest he will present the program of his government to the parliament, and the parliament has to vote for it. And if the parliament rejects it, then there will be new elections of the prime minister, and if these fail, then the parliament has to be dissolved. So at this point, this is the most realistic scenario of dissolving the parliament. If the parliament accepts the program, then it means that for a year the parliament will still be in place, and it will complicate things for Nikol Pashinyan and his government, because it will be very difficult for them to implement their reform agenda. They have also promised to change the electoral code before the election. So again, in that sense, it's going to be difficult for them to pass it through the parliament because of the opposition of the former ruling party. So it's still in a situation of flux.
You mentioned Pashinyan's parliamentary program and his agenda. What can we expect, and what do we know about what his program consists of so far?
When it comes to foreign policy, I think his foreign policy will be very cautious because of the geopolitical situation in Armenia. So he's not going to try to make any significant movements, whether to the east or to the west or to the north or to the south. So I think that his top priority is reforming the internal political and economic system, getting rid of corruption, and also ensuring division of power, the independence of the legislative and of the courts, making sure that the tax system is just, because we had a lot of complaints by especially small and medium businesses about the way taxes are collected, the way customs offices work, and so on.
One of Pashinyan's first moves as Prime Minister was going to be calling snap elections. Has he called these snap elections? Has a date been set? And if not, when can we expect to see these elections take place?
Well, as I said, there's a constitutional hurdle. So he has to first he has to present his program to the parliament. And if this program is not accepted, then according to the constitution, a snap election has to take place. So if the program is not accepted, then the parliament votes again on the candidature of prime minister. If no new prime minister is elected, then Pashinyan remains acting prime minister, and his government remains acting government until a new election is called. And in this scenario, the new election will happen in about 2 months. So that's the most probable scenario at this point. Of course, the Republican can make a smart move and vote for his program, which will mean that the new election will have to be called in about a year. And throughout this year, the Republicans will still control the parliament. But at this point, I think it's not very likely. But in Armenia, situation has been changing very fast every day in the recent months. So that's also an option that we cannot exclude. At this moment, Pashinyan is very popular. His team is very popular. The whole movement is popular. So if the election takes place now, or in a month from now, or even in 2 months from now, I think he's guaranteed to win, and he will receive very high amount of votes. If the election takes place in a year, by that time probably there will be a lot of disappointments. Also, within this 1 year, because of Republicans' resistance, Pashinyan will not be able to implement many of his reforms. So we might see a backlash. I don't know what exactly the percentage will be, but obviously, if the election takes place 1 year, it may give a new chance to Republicans. So probably that's why they will be trying to postpone the election and to have it in 1 year.